the story that she is going to share today is related to how she found the real relationship with Jesus, but then also how God revealed to her her business strategy and her business plan. She had her own plan and her own goals, but then God came in and said, something else. So, and this is also like a core part of his kingdom business, where we follow God's plans instead of our own. And so, first of all, I would love to ask you, Cassie, what is your story about being saved by Jesus, and how did you find that true relationship with him so that you could start receiving the guidance for your life and specifically for your business?
Oh, what a great question. So when I was little, I was raised in a home of medical professionals. My mom was an optometrist, my dad was a dentist. And so I was always in the medical career path. Went to college and quickly realized that that was not the story for me. I was not supposed to be in the medical field. So I was in this point in my life where I was in kind of an existential crisis. And thankfully, the Lord sent me an incredible man at that time. He's my husband now. We've been married for 14 years, but at the time we've been dating for just a little while. And he was like a Jesus guy, like a real Jesus guy. And I had been raised in the church. Like I had head knowledge of Christ. My parents were Sunday school teachers. Like we did the whole pray before bed. But it was a very do this because you should. There wasn't that personal walk with the Lord. And so I've been dating this Jesus guy now for about a year. I'm in college and I'm just searching. Like everything that I thought that I was supposed to be is in question. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. You know, when you're in your teens and 20s, you think you're supposed to have life figured out. You're not. But I thought I was supposed to. So I'm trying to make these huge life-altering decisions. And my husband, or my boyfriend at the time, he invites me to his church because, like I said, he's a Jesus guy. He's helping with the youth group. And so I start going with him. And in my head, I'm thinking, I don't have time for this. I'm supposed to be studying. I need to decide what I'm doing with my life. And the Lord just revealed himself to me in such a beautiful way through that, specifically through worship, just watching these young adults, these high schoolers. I'm supposed to have it all figured out. I'm watching these high schoolers just praise Jesus. And I knew at that point that there was something I was missing, that there was a deeper walk than what I was experiencing. And so I really just went on this beautiful journey of the Lord revealing himself to me in a relationship. And so I say that there wasn't like a day or a minute where I just submitted, but it was this walk. It was a walk that I'm still on, of just getting deeper into his heart and just experiencing life with him.
Oh, and your then boyfriend and now husband seems to have been really the important like facilitator in that process, right?
He was, and I don't know how many people watching this have had that person in their life who was Jesus to them, who walked and lived and introduced them to the person of Jesus in a way that you could see it. He was definitely that person in my life. I learned to trust the Lord through being, and through seeing his disciple. And my husband was that disciple in my life. So very blessed.
And of course, we all have different individual personal stories about how we really realized what Jesus and God are about, as opposed to what religion tells us what it is about, or even the new religions are telling us what it is about. And sometimes God sends us people to facilitate that process, and sometimes it's maybe a direct experience in the first instance, so it really depends. And before you really came to know Jesus personally and in a relationship, did you ever have a moment where you were getting a bit cold with God, or were you always like passionate about it? But was it more about like just ticking the boxes and having a God in a separate box from your own life plans? Because when you said that, I don't have time to go to the church, I don't have time to do that because I have my own plans. So did you ever go astray, so to say, in between, or was it just a bit like lukewarm or more like obligation?
I think the best way to say it is I was living under the law. I had experienced the rules of God. I understood the authority of God, but it was from a very place of, you're supposed to do this, you shouldn't do that, you go to church on Sundays, you don't go hang out with these friends, you don't, there was more of these kind of the rules of God, and the walk with him was more following a set of procedures. And so it wasn't that I ever went astray, because to be honest, I was never on the path truly to begin with. I was so selfish. Like, I can look back and see how I was just looking out for me. It was, how do I make it through? How do I take care of myself? How do I do the right things to be the good girl? And so I look back on that time of so much striving and so much attempting to be good on my own merits. And so then you look at Christ and how he came to fulfill the law, and he fulfilled it with love and with grace and with mercy. And so I look at it now as a journey of learning how to be a daughter of God instead of, a servant of God. And so it's such a beautiful, just a different way of experiencing him.
Yeah, and exactly what you just shared. It's so, I love it that you shared it, because so many of us can relate to that, whether it is related to God or Jesus, or related to any area of our life, that we just are fulfilling certain expectations so that we look good to the outside. And now moving toward, me too. And
that heart, he knows our hearts.
And now moving towards the career business part of our conversation. I think this is a great bridge as well, because often we choose careers, whether it's as an employed employee, or in business, self-employed, or another form that we think we should be doing so that it looks good to the outside, and we look like, honorable or respected members of society. And also this difference between having our own will and our own plans, what we think that we should be doing, or even if we haven't got anything imposed. I definitely didn't have anything imposed on me, but I had this based on my parents, or especially my mother's value systems. I had this expectation and pressure for myself that this is how I need to be in order to be a good person. And so tell us a little bit more about, how did you choose your career path and your and your studies, and then what happened through this relationship with God and by surrendering to his will. But above all, how did you hear about let's go step by step.
Okay. So I think that's a great segue with the expectations. I grew up again in a family of medical professionals, and it was never like spoken that that's what we had to do. But between me and my siblings, that's what you do, right? You just grow up and you go to the medical field. And so I had pursued that through high school. I was in our health occupation students. I was competitive in our little like health events, and went into pre-med for college. Never questioned it, never asked if that was what I wanted to do. And again, my boyfriend at the time, he said, you're spending more time designing your office than you are actually worried about getting your degree in medical field, right? And I was like, you're right. So I did a complete 180. I went from science, math, calculus, all of the very left brain, just very
analytical.
Yeah, very just black and
Rational.
white. It's right or it's wrong. You study, you take the test, you get the grade. And completely switched. And I didn't, I asked the Lord about it, but at that point in my life, it was very much, what do I want? So I went from what my parents wanted to what I wanted. So I switched to interior design, and oh my goodness, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I went from I know how to do this to I am a fish out of water. I'm taking drawing classes. I'm learning about color theory. All of my teachers are like, woo! Everything's graded by how it makes you feel. And I'm like, I have gone into absolute craziness. So I completely switched.
Did you regret at any point? Did you regret?
Have enough of a challenger personality that I took it as a challenge and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it was frustrating at times because I've always been top of the class. Like, I know how to do this. And to be put in a position where I don't even know what we're talking about, let alone how to do it, was very humbling. So I really went to a point of proving myself. It was always, I got to prove myself. So I went through interior design, graduated with interior design degree and a business minor, because I've always loved business, always loved small business. And I kind of see that whisper of God, like that, just see that little, like, that's really who he made me to be. But interior design was my thing. So I went into, I think it's my junior year, we had to apprentice. We had to go get like a little apprenticeship. And I looked in, I think it was like maybe right around Google. Like Google may have existed at this point, but it may have been still the yellow pages. I'm old.
And I used Alta Vista in the 90s. Maybe it was Alta Vista.
Maybe it was what it was. I remember searching. Like I had to go look and say, like, where are their design places? So I walk into, and this was definitely a God appointment. I walk into this little teeny tiny store in the oldest town. It's kind of close to my college town, and walk into what was my future. It was what I knew I was supposed to do. It was a small store. She brought me in unpacking boxes. I worked my way up to be a co-owner in less than 5 years. We had plans to open multiple locations across the Southeast. That was it. That was the thing. And then God. That's the part where God really stepped in. So do you want me to keep going on that one?
Yes, okay, please.
Okay, I didn't know pause. So I was in Gracious Designs, was the name of the little store. We opened a second location and then a third location. And while I was at the store, I got married. I had my first 2 children. This is my career path. This is it. I've dedicated at this point over a decade of my life. And I was pregnant with my third, which you can probably hear in the background. And I don't know if you've ever had that stirring in your heart. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing bad. There's just the Lord's doing something. And
yes, I know that feeling.
I had turned 30 recently. I had done everything on I did have a checklist. I was like, I will be married. I will have 3 children. I will, I had the checklist. The list was checked and I had, everything was on track. And I just felt this stirring. And so I just really prayed. And at this point I was, very active in my faith, and asked my husband to pray, and I really leaned into it. And I kept hearing the Lord say, it's done, but it's not over. It's done, but it's not over. I was like, what does that mean? And so right before my son was born, I actually went to my business partner and I told her what I'd been feeling. She's a very godly woman. She was a mentor in the faith to me. She's incredible. And she said, I've been feeling, I knew the Spirit was doing something. She was prepared. Wow. And so we closed that business within 2 months. We laid it down. We put it at the foot of the cross. We laid it down. Still makes me tear up. And I said I went home and I was a stay-at-home mom. I had my little boy and I was a stay-at-home mom for 2 months before I got bored. I'm just made to be an entrepreneur, guys. So I wrote a book. I was like, Lord, what do you have for me next? And he led me to a publishing course. I self-published a book. And
about what was your book?
About decorating Christmas trees. I had a book in mind, and the coach said, write the book you can write first. So I wrote the book. It went on to be an Amazon bestseller in its first week. It got traditionally published a little while later, so it was a fun story. But through that, the Lord just did this beautiful rebirth. There was just this time where I had to lay down my plans. My plans were the design field, and I was going to open stores, and that was it. And he had to show me his best for me. And it was that journey of having to submit it to him first that allowed him to reveal what was to come. And it was probably one of the hardest seasons of life. It's hard enough, I think, to lay something down when it's dying, but when it's growing and still producing fruit, and the Lord says, hand it over, it didn't make sense. It went against everything. That was my career. I was an owner in this business. It was everything. And I said, Lord, it's yours. And so my partner, she went on and opened a little store. Get this, the weekend my third son was born, the doors opened to that second store.
It
was just so symbolic. And I know for time here, but I just love to share these little God moments.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
I was about 3 months pregnant, and I went to open the fridge, and I felt like the Lord said, the name is to be Noel. And I said, I'm having a girl. I have 2 boys at this point. So I just knew. I went and told my husband, I'm like, honey, this is kind of crazy, but I think we're supposed to name her Noel.
And Noel is Christmas.
Christmas. Now I'm dumb. I didn't make the connection. I was just like, what a beautiful name. So fast forward, we're at the ultrasound. I'm like, it's a girl. And she's like, it's a boy. I'm like, no. I heard from God. Like, what? And so guess what the name of our new store is? Noel. So the name was and same weekend, my business partner came to see the baby and went and cut the ribbon at the new store. So the Lord rebirthed a beautiful store in place of what we submitted over to him, and it's doing great. It's thriving. So Noel is 5 years old this year. My son, Levi, is 5 years old. So he rebirthed something new in her. And then in me personally, I was searching. I was like, Lord, I know you have something for me. This call in my heart to entrepreneurship it's just who I am. It's just so heavy. And so I got an invitation to do a mastermind retreat for advanced business owners in San Diego. I don't have a business at this point. I am a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids. I'm nursing. I have no business being there, none. And I said, I'm supposed to go to that. And at the time, we didn't have the finances. I wasn't working. I was staying at home with the kids. And my husband said, we don't have it now, but if it opens up again, we'll make a way. And so I said, that's fine. So I talked to the lady on the phone. I said, I feel like I'm supposed to be there, but I don't have the fine. It was right on the holidays. I was like, we're, buying presents for the kids. I don't have the money. She said, well, do you want me to put you on the waiting list? And I said, yeah, that's fine. You know what happens? 2 months later, it's February, the event's in March. She calls me up and she said, we've had a lady that just backed out. You have 2 weeks. You're at the top of the list. Do you want to go? And I had done some work over the holidays, and the money was in the account. My husband had airline miles on a credit card that he had saved up for years. And I'm like, let's go. Let's do this thing. So I fly across the country to do a high-end business retreat with a mastermind of 7-figure business owners. I don't have a business. I don't even have an idea at this point. I'm like, I don't know why I'm here.
Glory to God. I have to say this now.
And he opened the doors, and the relationships I made there, incredible women. So to kind of speed it up, I go to this mastermind and I'm kind of spilling out ideas. I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking doing this, maybe do this. And I'm sitting there in this circle, and I think there's 16 of us. And every person that came up, the Lord was just downloading this, they could do this. You get just these plans for them. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, does nobody else see this? Nobody else getting this? And so publicly, I would say 1 or 2 ideas, but personally afterwards, I would go find the person. I'd be like, have you thought about this? Or I felt like there was something here. And so we get ready to leave. It was a 3-day event. And I had probably 4 or 5 people come up and say, Cassie, the word you gave me was as beneficial as this whole weekend. Just that was what I needed to hear. And so I'm sitting there like, Lord, where did that come from? I don't have a 7-figure business. I don't even have a business. I'm sitting here trying to figure out what I'm here for. So I'm flying home. I don't know if anybody else has had this experience where you're up in the air and the Lord's just you're closer to me or away from, I don't know, but he just like downloads.
Yes, that has happened to me.
And that happened. It's just like,
as,
I don't know.
As soon
like,
as I travel, and especially as I fly, it's like, whoa.
It's just something, I don't know. So I'm in the air and I've got a journal. I still have it. And he just downloaded. He said, I want you to serve my daughters in business. And he just downloaded. He downloaded a book. He downloaded a business plan. He downloaded just this vision of what was to come that I didn't even understand. I was still, I feel like our lens is so small sometimes. So I'm just trying to figure out what do I do now? And he just gave me this beautiful plan. So I came home, started Christian Women Business Builders, paid for a website that I didn't even know what I was doing. And 5 years later, I feel like I'm just stepping into like the beginning of what he has. Like it's just been a journey ever since.
Oh, what a story. And what I would love to ask about around that story is that how was it for you? First of all, that what you said that when the stores were going well, and you were like, why am I supposed to close this off now? And I could relate to that so well from my own journey, not so much related to business, but related to other decisions where I have received an instruction to leave a country and move to another country, or leave a job and either go to another job or move to another country, and things were going well. And I was like, things are all going well. And back then, I always got this, whether it came from God or whether it was my own metaphor that I got for this, it's better to leave when the party is at its best. I know this analogy is not very godly, but I don't know about you. I was this a bit crazy Finnish party girl as I was a student. So you went to this party and you had a great time, and then after the midnight, it was just getting worse and worse and worse, and all the joy was gone, and you were just like, crap. And I always had this analogy, like when God asked me to leave something behind that I didn't understand, but I just trusted and I did it. It's like, it's better to leave them when the party is at its best and you don't stay there and watch when it's going down. And by the way, for example, one great example was that I was in a job that I liked a lot. I was in international relations, international staff, partnership, programs, initiatives, exactly what I love doing. And then God instructed me to leave, to quit. That was in Austria, to quit that job and move to Australia. And then I quit and I left. That is a whole another story. But after a few months, I heard from my ex-colleagues that the president of that organization had been changed, and the new president was anti-international.
You would have been.
He was just all about agriculture. I love agriculture. It is needed. It's important. But he was just about that. It was just a whole another topic. And he dismissed people like this and brought his own people in. And so I was protected by not having to watch that decline and that whole thing that happened. So I can so relate to that when we get the impulse and the instruction to leave something that we don't understand, it's so important to have that faith and do it regardless. And then we get the confirmation later. Or even if we don't get the confirmation, it's just to know that I'm being obedient. And I'm getting this word obedience a lot because I'm hearing it through your story. So what I would love to know more about, how did you, because many of us, we are, more or less independent women who are, high performers, ambitious. We want to do things and we want to make an impact. And what we do, we want to do very well, not just like okay, but like above average. You are one of them too, I can see it. So then it can be very hard to then just surrender, because we often think that we know and we can see through and we can know, and our mind works very fast and it's la da da. So how was it for you then to let that go and start to surrender to?
Oh man, that's a great question. I would love to say that as soon as he revealed his plan for me, that I was like surrendered and doing it his way, and I was just like, yes, Lord. I think there is such a part of our flesh that wants it to be based off of our works. Look what I can do. Look how smart I am. Look how I figured this out. So probably for the first 3 years of building the business that he had for me, I mean, he gave it to me. It was his will. I was building it off of a little bit of insight for him, and then I would take it and I would run with it. And then I would wonder why I wasn't seeing the results that I would want to see. It's like he would give me a seed and I'd be out there trying to plant the whole garden. And he said, no, I want you to tend this first. So I just, even last year, I feel like last summer through, I know COVID was different for everybody. We were really protected from it as a family. We were very blessed in that it never really hit home. I mean, obviously we were affected, around, but it was just this season. And I felt like he just gave me this word, and he says, I'm removing the wheat from the chaff. I'm removing the wheat from the chaff. And he gave me this vision of how through this season of turmoil and distress and just so much going on in the world, he was blowing away everything that didn't matter. And he says, I'm leaving the wheat. And so personally, I just was like, Lord, what does that look like? What do I still need to let go of? It felt like I'd let go of so much. And that was it. He said, you're building your business off of your own understanding. And so Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 has just been like a waterfall, just pouring over my life in the last several months, just in how many ways I was trusting my own understanding. If I couldn't see it, it didn't exist. If I didn't understand how it was going to work out, then I wouldn't do it. And I would take little steps of faith, right? But then I would take the rest on my own abilities. So I think as an independent, God made women incredible, right? Like women are incredible creatures. And he gives us such beautiful insights, I think, into his plans, because he knows our heart to nurture. But we have to be careful. In the very Garden of Eden, what was the first thing that she wanted? She wanted to be like God, right? And I think we still battle that sometimes. Lord, I trust you, but I want to know how to do it. I want to understand how this works. I want to see it happen my way. So it's been a season of trusting not in my own understanding, truly relying on him, leaning on him, his ways, they don't make sense, right? Like the way that he works, it doesn't make sense. But there has to be that dying to self and release in order to see him do his work.
Yeah. And when you said about this, that he gave you a seed and then you went and planted a whole garden. So were you referring that he gave you an insight, and instead of just focusing on that one thing and cultivating that, you started to think,
I'm going to go build a funnel. I'm going to go pay $5,000 for
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. So, he said, I gave you this, take care of it. Yeah. And I'm in the middle of doing a work on multiplying, and how as his children we're made to multiply. We're given gifts, good gifts to multiply for the kingdom. And he gives us that to multiply, but then we have to steward it well. And so often we're too busy trying to plant the next thing, and we haven't tended the one he's given us. And so we don't ever see multiplication.
I'm getting a powerful word about this, that this is not now literal from the Bible, but the meaning is that what God can entrust us with little, he will entrust us with a lot. And this is exactly what you are talking about, that what we get from him as a seed or an insight or an instruction, that we treat that as this is the center of our world, and this is important, and when we take good care of that, then he will give us more.
Yes, and it's only he that grows, right? Paul says, I planted, Apollos watered, but only God can bring the growth so that the glory is unto him.
Exactly.
And so many, I don't know about non-entrepreneurs because I'm just an entrepreneur at heart, but so many entrepreneurs try to take responsibility for the growth.
Oh, yes.
We get the seed, somebody helps us out, we get some water, and then we're like, okay, I'm going to grow. And the Lord says,
And that is there when then the hustle and burnout comes then.
Yes.
I have actually two specific questions I would like to ask you before we start wrapping up, if that's okay for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first is look, I have been in this situation myself. So, and I am sure I have been in entrepreneurial communities, and I know many women and men entrepreneurs myself. And so that's why I think this question is relevant for many of us. That's why I'm asking. So God brings a business opportunity to us. And then it doesn't really grow, even if we start to tend it. Or we get an insight about a business idea or a next step. And then we make the investment and we start taking action and doing our part. And often it doesn't grow, even though the opportunity came through God's guidance. So what would you say that are what is the problem here? Because that can be very confusing, because am I like, okay, like God brought this opportunity to me, but it's not growing, it's not going anywhere, even though I am doing everything I think I should be doing, because only praying and in business you need to still take action. So what would you say that is the problem there, or why that may be happening?
Oh, it's such a good question, because I think we've all had that experience, right? We have that thing that we know, oh, this is going to be it. This is what he has for me. And then you go forward and it feels like it's just hard, or it just doesn't ever take root, or you just don't ever see it. I think it's twofold. I think number one, that the Lord uses failure as one of his refining fires. And I think often what we learn and how we submit ourselves through even a good idea in failure reveals our heart. Where are the areas that we're still relying on our strength? Where are the areas that we are still trying to make it happen on our own? Or maybe that we don't fully trust the goodness of God. Maybe we trust him in our relationships, but not really in our finances. Or maybe we trust him to deliver the idea, but not really to make the connections necessary to see it grow. So I think on some cases, when we are given a seed that doesn't thrive, we can look at the conditions around it, and we can take inventory on what is it that was lacking. Was there not enough connection to the sun? Was I not really giving it over? Maybe I was working so hard that I smothered it, right? Like if you've ever had a plant and you give it too much attention and you like are taking too, like you water it too much, it'll die. Like you've created this little God out of the idea he gave you. So I think sometimes there is a refinement that happens through failure. And I think some other times there is this beautifying testing period of getting to where he wants us to see fruit. So when you plant something, it sometimes, I mean, depending on what you plant, like it can take a long time for it to go from seed to fruit. And we want to see fruit the next week, right? We want to see, and we don't put down the roots. It said that you will know a tree by its fruit. You will know what is within by the good that is out. So if we're focused only on growth, and we're not putting down strong roots, it can be, we have to put down the roots of faith, the roots of really, really building our business on the foundation of Christ, so that when we grow strong, we produce fruit, we can bear it. Grapevines don't produce fruit the first year. They produce minimal fruit the second year, but they're cut back. It's not until the third year that they are allowed to start bearing a harvest, because they know that it would kill the vine if they produced fruit too soon.
Yeah, this is such a great answer, because what often happens in the entrepreneurial community, there is almost sometimes like cursing of being in a job. and then they want to rush to quit their job and just to be in business. And I have done this as well. I have quit a job and then I didn't have an income. I was living off my savings, but I was just frozen, because some people, they start to take action and start to thrive under those conditions, but not me. So then I have this rush. I need to make this happen quickly because I need an income from it, and this performance pressure that we spoke about earlier. So what I have also learned, at least for me, is that, like, keep your job and appreciate your job and be happy in your job and serve to your best ability in your job, and then don't try to rush your business. And I have stopped cursing a job anyway. I am loving my job that I have now. So this is what I have at least learned, that there is this kind of people want to quit their job, and then I'm a great business person when I have quit my job. And many get trapped. That's a trap for many. And then
there's a gardening saying where you don't plant your tomato seed when you're hungry, because you'll be apt to try to eat it before it's time. So if in that analogy, yes, use your business, even if you don't love it, but if the Lord has you there and he's providing through that, start your business on the side, allow it to start producing fruit of its own before you rely on that to be your main source. You don't plant a seed and then expect to eat off of it the next week. Like, you understand there's a season of growing and there's a season of producing good fruit. So yes, use that job to sustain you while you're building your business, so you don't have that pressure. You don't feel that unnatural push to make it successful before it's ready.
Yes. And what would be then you are also very welcome, and I would love it if you would like to share something to wrap up, anything that you feel in your heart that you would like to share. But before that, just one small thing is that what you also spoke about, separating chaff from the wheat. And often in business world and anything, when we have had our own plans, we have invested time, money, effort into that. And then Lord comes in and say, look, this is not what I want you to have. So do you have any tips of how people could take it better? Because it's so difficult to surrender, because you have invested so much into building something that you believed in, and then Lord really reveals something new. And this is very typical in business world as well.
I think it goes back to the theme of kind of what we've talked about today, is obedience. Building is my heart. I have such a heart for helping women build businesses off of the foundation of Christ. And I just did an example. I just did a story in February where it talked about building the Tower of Babel. When anything we build on our own strength, the Lord is going to topple. Not because he's angry, not because he, hates our growing, our building, because it's not his plans. It's not his best for us. So we have to be willing to give up our better for his best. So when we build things on our own power, it's never going to be successful, because God is not glorified through that. So when we build on the foundation that is Christ, and we're building in his way, he's the owner, he gives us the plans, we're the builders, we're the master builders, and we're building that on the foundation, which is Christ, it'll last for eternity. So understanding that when we let go of things that are not our best, it's to build something that's going to last. And I think that's such a kingdom answer that it doesn't sound practical sometimes, but it is. It's understanding that I'm letting go of what's going to fall anyways, so that I can focus on what he's building for eternity.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. Thank you. And I love that analogy, like letting go of what we think is good for the better, so that God can give us our best. And the why he's doing it, so that he gets the glory.
He gets the glory. And it's awesome, right? Like, the only way he gets glory is if we're praising his name. So it's going to be good. It's not like he gets glory if we're all there like, oh, God's awful. No, like, it's our best too. His best is our best. So.
Yes. Thank you so much. Do you have a final message that you would like to share with our listeners before we wrap up?
I think just to lean into the power that we have in Christ, to do all things, to mother well, to build our businesses well, to reach a lost and dying world. Where we are weak, He is strong. We have the power of Christ in us to do good works. It's not us doing works. There's nothing in us that can do good works. But when we connect to the power of Christ in us, then we can do more and incredibly more than we could ever ask or imagine.